Week 8 fantasy football lessons learned. We're going to get right into it like we usually do. And I want to talk a couple of things about the New York Giants and some good, some bad. But unfortunately, we're going to have to get into the bad. And that is Cam Skattebo, who went down this past week with a brutal ankle injury. You don't want to go and watch the video. Please don't, for your own discretion. If you want to, just don't do it. It's not worth it. One of the most fun breakouts of the year. Super fun player. Has pretty much lifted up this Giants team along with Jackson Dart after Malik Neighbors went down and was helping this team win a lot of football games. A lot of football games that a lot of people didn't think they were going to be in. A lot of football games that a lot of people didn't think that they would win in general. Has given these Giants fans something to cheer about. And unfortunately, he goes down with a brutal injury and he's going to miss all of this season. Hopefully, he gets a strong recovery back next season. But he is leaving behind a lot of opportunities and touches. And I think we're going to highlight this in the waiver claim video, but Tyron Tracy is absolutely got to be the number one waiver wire option if he's available in your league. He is under 50% ownership in ESPN and Yahoo leagues. He's going to be an easy top 24 option, RB2 here on out, just based on volume, just based on his receiving ability in general. He was a breakout last year for the Giants as a day 3 pick. He was really, really fun last year, and if it wasn't for Cam Skattebo, he might still be doing the same thing he did last year, but he's going to step into this RB1 role and pretty much take it over completely. And with Jackson Dart leading this offense, he's kind of lifted this team in general, even without Neighbors on the field and without many options in general. And I think he's a strong play, like I said, just based on volume. He's going to catch the ball out of the backfield. That is one of his biggest skill sets, and just kind of going to be an easy, RB2 from here on out. You can plug him in with confidence, and if he's on waivers in your league, please go claim him. I think there should be a lot of fab put down on him this week, this upcoming Wednesday. Going away from the bad, I kind of want to talk about the breakout, another, fun thing that has happened for Giants fans this year, and that is going to be Jackson Dart, who, in my opinion, is an easy quarterback one the rest of the season. He is a top 12 option, at least from here on out, just based on his rushing ability, just based on what he's done. The Giants are going to be playing a lot from behind this season. And I know it's obvious at this point. I know a lot of people have probably been saying, especially after the first couple of weeks, that what his Dart has done after his first 5 starts. He's averaged 22 points per game. I mean, that is up there with Jalen Hurts. It's up there with Lamar Jackson. Not quite with Patrick Mahomes this year. He's been on another level, but just in general, he's been up there with the guys who have been the top of the league in terms of at least at the position of fantasy points per game. So Dart is such an easy start most weeks, unless you have Mahomes, Allen, Lamar, Drake May, Jaden Daniels when he's healthy, maybe Dak Prescott. I don't think there's anybody else in fantasy football that you should be starting over Jackson Dart. I mean, his rushing ability, just in general, is going to elevate his floor ceiling, like we talk about all the time. And he's a top 7 to 8 quarterback rest of season for me. And yeah, like I said, just due to this Giants team in general, they're going to be playing a lot from behind. The defense isn't great. It is a lot better than it was last year, of course, but they don't have a lot of options, and he's been doing a lot of the heavy lifting. Super fun option. Kind of came out of nowhere, late first round pick this year. But Jackson Dart is a quarterback one rest of the season for me. And it kind of goes into the Tyron Tracy that we just talked about last year due to the Cam Skattebo injury. These are 2 guys that I would be starting my lineups most weeks, unless I just have a complete loaded team, unless I'm playing in like in an 10-man league where I don't have the luxury of having to start Tyron Tracy. But Jackson Dart, man, he's super, super good. The rushing upside is there, and I think you should be starting him each and every week if you don't have one of these elite top options. And if somehow he's available in your leagues, please go snag him. I mean, he is super, super fun, and you should be owning him. He should be owned in every single league, and he's a top 12 quarterback at least for the rest of the season for me. All right, so the next guy I want to talk about, and the next note I want to take just based on what I saw this week, is not something necessarily negative based on this player, but just something that I've noticed the last couple of weeks. And James Cook, is he game script reliant? And I know that this is going to seem weird, especially after seeing him run. He ran for over 200 yards this week, 2 touchdowns. But the biggest red flag that I saw is his complete reliance on rushing production and touchdowns alone. It's almost Derrick Henry-esque, where Derrick Henry is so good, on the ground that he really doesn't need, like, he's such a big part of the Ravens scheme. At the goal line, he's going to get the ball at the goal line. He's going to steal a lot of rushing touchdowns, and he's going to break up a lot of big runs. But that is pretty much what the Bills coaching staff has shoved James Cook into this year. He is really not done much like as a receiver out of the backfield. In the past 3 weeks, he's had zero catches. He's had one target, and on the season, he has just 14 targets and 12 catches. He has less than 90 yards, which is super odd for a guy coming out of Georgia a couple of years ago who that was like his main role was a third down back. That was his main skill set. He was a really good pass catcher. And the last two seasons, especially, James Cook's role has just completely changed, especially for like a smaller guy. I think he was below 200 pounds at the combine or something like that. And just bizarre how he's not being used out of the backfield. He's being taken off the field on third downs, long down the distance, the 2 minute drill for Ty Johnson. Super weird. I don't get it. Maybe it's just a 2 game sample size where they were trailing most of the games. That was in weeks 5 and 6. He didn't eclipse 9 PPR points, and I know that that's a small sample size, but the sample size doesn't matter when he's getting taken off the field. He's not playing third down snaps. He's not catching the ball out of the backfield, which I understand with Josh Allen. He's going to run the ball a lot. He's going to be a factor. He's not going to check down. He's going to take off himself. I totally get that point. And while James Cook is going to have some really big week just based on the nature of the Bills in general. They have Josh Allen. They're going to be leading a lot of these games. But the passing down work, the third down rate is super concerning to me. And the game script could be reliant on. I think it's something to look at the next couple of weeks. This Bills defense is not as good as it was in years past, and they could be playing from behind some games. As we haven't seen that a lot in the past because the Bills defense has been really good. They've been able to lean on the run. They've been lean on Josh Allen and chew the clock and use James Cook a lot more. But this snap rate, this weird using Ty Johnson, how they've mixed him in more than he should, I think, and I think a lot of Bills fans would probably agree just based on what I've seen on the internet. But it's super concerning for me, and I think it's something to really watch with James Cook, and especially I know he's averaging just below 20 points a game, which is really nice. But I mean, could you move him for a guy like Devon Achane? I know it seems weird to move to a guy who's probably averaging around the same points per game, but we know Achane has that really high ceiling just based on his production as a receiver. But maybe you're nervous with Tua not being able to stay healthy and his injury history, and that's totally fine. But if you can maybe get up to a Jahmyr Gibbs from James Cook, I would absolutely consider doing it just based on like Jahmyr Gibbs' role as a receiver. He's going to be really consistent. He's going to get targeted out of the backfield. We know he's starting to take over that pretty much complete role from David Montgomery. His role has dwindled the last couple of weeks, but it's something to really watch with James Cook. I mean, this receiving production and or lack thereof at all is super concerning and something that I really want to be looking at if I am a James Cook owner and maybe possibly moving off of him. But if you don't, just expect there to be some down weeks, especially in games where the game script isn't really favorable for him and where they're not leading by a bunch. So, like I said, just keep an eye out for James Cook. And if he has these down weeks, I think it's just going to be something we're going to have to deal with throughout the season because yeah, he's not getting any work out of the backfield, and as long as they're using Ty Johnson on third downs and long down and distance, and even in 2 minute drills, I think this is really concerning and something that I would be concerned about if I was a James Cook owner. So just a small note there, something I've been noticing in the last couple of weeks, and something that JJ Zacharyson really pointed out in his video this past week, and it kind of opened my eyes. So James Cook, maybe game script reliant, we'll see, but something I am pretty concerned about. Okay, next note, we are going to dive into Kamani Vidal. And the reason I want to dive into Kamani Vidal so much, and I know that he's been a really, really nice waiver wire pickup for people who added him in leagues and who pretty much chose to make their bet on Kamani Vidal over Hassan Haskins when Marion Hampton went down, when Najee Harris went down. But I want to dive into this recent news that came up this past week in a thread that I saw on Twitter, and that was about Marion Hampton and his current status because he was placed on IR in week 6 and is eligible to return, I believe, in 2 weeks in week 10. And then when the Chargers play the Steelers, I believe. However, there were reports that his injury is likely worse than a lot of people believed. He is currently still in a walking boot. And although there hasn't been any reports of a fracture or surgery of any kind, there were reports by fantasy doctors in general that he could miss up to his earliest return could be at week 13 at the earliest. And that is after their week 12 bye. That is a week, I believe, or 2 weeks before the fantasy playoffs, before like you really, really need, to have your lineups set and ready to go for, the money weeks. And this is concerning because if I own a Marion Hampton, I do not want to wait until week 13. And that is worst case scenario. But if you have Kamani Vidal, I think from here on out, for the next 3, 4, 5 weeks, however long Marion Hampton is out, he is a super, super strong RB2 play, top 24 option. I mean, he is getting all the volume, he's getting all the receiving work, he is getting the goal line work, he's getting just about everything you had hoped for. He's pretty much getting the Marion Hampton role when Najee Harris went down and has the entire backfield to himself. And he's looked incredible. I mean, the Chargers have pretty much been looking for an option ever since Hampton and Najee went down, and Vidal stepped in right away. He's been exactly what they needed. And the next 3 weeks leading up to the bye in Week 12, he has super strong matchup. He has the Titans, the Steelers, and the Jaguars. And depending on if Hampton comes back in Week 13, we don't really know yet. We haven't heard anything about his injury at all, if he's going to return. But there was reports that he's going to be out longer than the 4-week absence, which is a current IR stint. So if Hampton were to miss the rest of the season or miss part of the fantasy playoffs or maybe, like I said, the entire rest of the season, Vidal is going to be a league winner. He is in an offense that is pretty high powered with, Keenan Allen, Justin Herbert, Lad McConkey, Quentin Johnston's come on this year. And of course, Aronde Gatson at tight end. And this team's loaded, and he has the entire backfield to himself. And if Hampton misses, the remainder of the season or most of the season, then Kamani Vidal is going to be the league winner that everybody needed because he has been awesome. I think he's averaging around 15 to 17 points per game, I believe. I know he had a little bit of a dud week in between, the 3 weeks that he's played, but he's going to be a super strong option and someone I really feel confident about, and I'm going to be moving up, but just based on the reports that come out about Hampton. But Kamani Vidal is super strong option, top 24 option rest of the season. Plug him in as your RB2, just set it, forget it pretty much. He's going to just be a good play best on volume, and he's been super efficient, been explosive. He can break off some big runs. He has that goal line role. So Kamani Vidal, if you have him, I feel confident at each and every week. I know a lot of people probably have him as a flex in some leagues just based on, grabbing him off of waivers. He wasn't a huge waiver wire option. So and the Hampton injury is something to monitor, and I would really, stress that, he may not come back. So I love it all rest of the season. And that was a really big headline that I think some people need to see just based on how great of work Jeff Mueller does in terms of fantasy injuries and something people should know about. Okay, so just like he has the past couple of seasons, Joe Flacco seems to be the savior that we needed, that we deserved, especially if you own these Bengals guys, because it seemed like just a couple of weeks ago we were calling, Chase Brown and T. Higgins especially pretty much dead in the water. They looked like with Jake Browning that they were not going to be returning any value on where you drafted them. All these guys have been pretty much disappointing. Even Jamar Chase, I mean, we know he's going to have his up weeks, but you drafted him with the first pick likely in your league, and you had to be super disappointed seeing Joe Burrow go down and how bad Jake Browning looked. And it seemed like all hope was lost, but Joe Flacco has come to the rescue. And fantasy managers who drafted these guys, who own these guys, who didn't trade them away, who were kind of stuck with them, it's going to pay off. And I think it's going to pay off in a big way because Jamar Chase especially is commanding a target share I have never, ever seen in my life. And since he took over, he is first in targets with 53 in 3 weeks, which is insane. I think he had like 23 targets 2 weeks ago against the Steelers. He's commanding a ridiculous 48% target rate. That's unreal. I don't even know how to explain how good that is. Chase Brown has actually been able to, the things have been opening up in the run game. He's been really much more effective. He's been effective in the passing game as well. Higgins had a big week 2 weeks ago. I know he saved his week this last week. He only had 2 targets and a catch. He had a long touchdown, but we know he's going to be volatile. He's going to have his big plays downfield. He's going to score touchdowns. I would not be worried about T. Higgins. I'm not worried about Chase Brown anymore, which is shocking considering how bad things were looking. I think weeks 1 through 5, weeks 1 through 6, but Chase Brown is a solid RB2 play, I think, each and every week. And the way he's looked over the past 3 weeks, I think we can have full confidence to just plug him in as a top 24 option. This Bengals offense is going to be just fine. And I think just based on the nature of how bad the Bengals defense is, we can feel confident each and every week that they're going to be playing from behind. They're going to be trying to score. They're going to be putting up numbers. Joe Flacco is actually going to be probably a decent streaming option as well. But I think people should maybe keep an eye out for Joe Flacco, his injury. I mean, he's a little bit older of a quarterback, and he left the game. I know he returned, but just want to make sure he's going to be just fine. But these 3 Bengals guys, Chase Brown, Higgins, Jamar Chase, I mean, they're going to be just fine. They're going to be top 24 options. We know Jamar Chase has like, wide receiver one each and every week in his range of outcomes. T. Higgins is a good play every week. He's going to have his big weeks. Chase Brown, like I said, is going to be great. So Joe Flacco is the hero we deserve, the hero we needed. And yeah, I think the biggest note over a 3-week sample size, which I think is big enough to kind of project at least for the rest of the season. And you can feel confident plugging these guys in your lineup and having some big weeks. And especially for Jamar Chase owners, you can feel good, especially after taking him at the 101. So the last thing I want to touch on is something I think might be a little bit more obvious just based on how big of weeks they just had. Two guys who I think you should trade for in all your leagues. These are two guys that I would be buying high on, even though they had big weeks, is Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry. And sure, I think maybe if you were smarter than me, a lot of people are smarter than me, maybe you should have done this earlier. But we finally saw Saquon have his big, huge week. He had his first run over 20 plus yards. I think he took it like 70, 80 yards to the house on like the second play of the game. He had been super disappointing, especially after last season. He was an early first round pick this year. Um, Super disappointing. The Eagles offense has been really up and down, and especially with Saquon, they haven't been able to get the run game going, but it seemed like Saquon is officially able to get things going this week, and the Eagles offense looked like it was humming on all cylinders, which is really, really nice to see. Derrick Henry as well has had his ups and downs. Even with Lamar Jackson, I think things have been a little bit rocky this year, but Henry had 2 touchdowns. He had 70 yards. He had a really nice week. I think he had just below 20 PPR points. And the good thing for Derrick Henry owners is Lamar is targeting his return this week. And another good thing is they play the Dolphins, who have the worst run defense in the NFL. They are absolutely terrible. Their schedule is really, really nice here on out, and especially in the fantasy playoffs if you look ahead. And yeah, I just think that these are two guys that if you didn't panic on up until this point, if you held, if you bought low on last week or the week before, just kind of hoping that they'd come alive. I couldn't have said it perfectly. I think that Ian Hart had said it perfectly, and winter is coming for these guys. I mean, these guys are going to be playing their best football down the stretch as the weather gets colder. They're going to be leaning on the run game more, cold weather environments in general. But yeah, Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry are guys that I am absolutely going to be looking to trade for in all my leagues. I know there's a lot of leagues you guys play in. You're not going to be able to get it done, especially after seeing what they did these past weeks. But just look out there. There's no harm in seeing if you can move a Brees Hall who just scored over 30 PPR points this past week, had a huge week. I mean, can you move him for maybe Saquon? Can you move? I think you can move him for Derrick Henry, maybe. Can you move Kyron Williams, who is a little bit more volatile as well? Can you move DeAndre Swift, who has had a really, really big last couple of weeks? Can you move him for Derrick Henry? Saquon, I'm not as confident that I can get him just because of where he was drafted and how big of a year he had last year. But can you move him for Derrick Henry? Like Kyron, Brees Hall, DeAndre Swift, can you do that? I mean, if you can get that done, I would absolutely do it. These guys are playing their best football at the midway point in the season. I think from here on out, they're going to really have some super, super nice games. They're going to have some big weeks, and they could be guys that you really need down the stretch, especially looking at Derrick Henry's fantasy playoff schedule in general. It is juicy. He is probably going to run all over a couple of those teams and win you money down the stretch. So if you were able to get it done, if you own Derrick Henry, just if you own Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley in general, I would say that you are looking good, especially after what we saw him do. So if you can trade for Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley, please do it. But if you own them, you're sitting pretty, feel good about it. The best is yet to come, and we just got a sneak peek of it this past week. So that's all I have for this week. Thank you guys for coming, and I will see you in week 9.